Fills up. I drank a lot of electrolytes today.
Okay.
Well, my second espresso.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the water, right?
It's like coffee.
It's pretty bad, right?
Yes, before anybody else not table behind you. No one else?
I got you again today.
Water, electrolytes.
So I usually
Much
come
of
that
me
way.
drink soda, it's a real great habit they taught you. Everybody had a soda fridge, you drank like 6 cans of soda, and you got to college, you realized that it wasn't good for you. Anyways, we're live. Hey, how are you guys? So I got Andrew Gismondi here today. My name is Jeremy Bowers. I'm one of the partners at Kennedy Mainline Philly. We came up with this idea, how I grew, because there's a really cool podcast called How I Built This. And I watched people listen to education and training, and I found that most people are listening. Everybody sign in? I find that people learn when they know someone's backstory. I'll give you an example. Goldstein's in the room today. There's something that he's from Cape May. I like Cape May, so like maybe his stories are more interesting to me because of his background. He grew up in Cape May, and the downside of that is he has to listen to me every weekend when I get down, ask him a question about Cape May. The point of the story is, will you guys ever notice you connect with certain people based upon you seeing their journey? So how I built this, I found that you listen, you take things away because you learn the journey. The last 20 minutes in class is powerful. What I learned is the first 40 is important. So today what we're really talking to is Andrew Gismondi, who created How I Grew. And Andrew's going to talk about where he grew up, what it was like as a child, his life, what he did in college, after college, and then today. I got the pleasure of knowing Andrew by working with him before, and I remember when the broker role came up, and someone said, who do you think should be the broker role? Because first off, most people, there's not a line, just FYI, for people raising their hand saying, I want to be the broker. You guys know that? There's not a lot. Like, I don't have my broker's license for a reason. You can run these, and you don't need. So the point is, I said right away, Andrew Gismondi. They're like, who's your number 2? I don't have one. And the reason why is I watched him over the years, and I'm gonna give him a shout out and brag about him real quick before we start. He is one of the best mentors I've ever had in my life. I've met 7,000 people. You're welcome. And the reason why is he listens well. And number 2, I don't know if he does get worked up, but I never see it. Right? Like that cool, calm cucumber, like you literally could just say, listen, I just did something wrong. He listens, gives you really good answers. And the last thing is he gives you solutions. You ever notice when you meet someone, they kind of make you feel bad, like when you tell them you did something dumb, or you don't know what you did, or you ask them a question, they kind of make you. He never makes you feel that way. And as an educator and as a leader, that's a rare thing to find that he's that. So became the broker, and I remember introducing him as the person to our group, ownership group, and I'm like, he's young. I said, he is young, and he's one of the smartest young people I've ever met in my life, and he will kick the crap out of someone that has 20, 30 years experience. And he has. So Andrew became the broker what year?
It was first week of January 2020.
All right, how old are you?
I'm 34 now, so it's 32 when I did it. Yeah, the world ended 60 days later.
Who's the new broker?
I'm going to negotiate that salary a little harder. But yeah.
I forgot about that part.
You know what I realized? Actually, I met you almost exactly 10 years ago. So I got started in real estate. My first day was December 3rd, 2012. So in like 3 weeks is my 10-year anniversary.
Wow.
I started at Coldwell Banker. Jeremy was the new office manager there when I started, right? Because you were on Home Experts for you before that, and then left out of there to take the the job as the office manager, kind of get out of sales. Yeah. Do you want to start a real estate?
Yeah. Where'd you grow up?
We started 10 years ago. We started 30 years ago.
Let's go 30 years ago. Where'd you grow up?
All right. So I grew up in Center City, Philadelphia.
You moved far.
Yeah. I went to school. I went to college in Pittsburgh for 4 years, and aside from that, I've lived pretty much within a mile of where I grew up my whole life. No, but Center City is cool, man. I grew up there.
I know.
It was 21st and Lombard, so literally right in Center City. And
So school here.
so I'll say it, but it's like we're in a room full of realtors. If anybody knows the city, like they're still there, right? So I went to Greenfield, nobody's ever advertised Greenfield. Catchment Zone, like that was a thing, and I went to Master for middle school and high school.
You're smart.
Ooh, smart,
Yeah,
Smart.
Yeah, and then you go to Pittsburgh, and you go to the smart school.
Yeah, let's
Jeremy,
not-
then you know that.
My last rank was 88 out of 109. I kind of, fucked around a little bit. But, yeah, landed on my feet.
So did you play sports growing up?
I did. I played sports, and then puberty hit. Everybody else got way better, and I
You
kind of
quit?
stayed about the same. So I played a little bit in high school.
What did you play?
Soccer, baseball, and then pretty much retired. And I was like the one person in my friend group that got a high school job. So that was.
What'd you do?
I worked at Model Sporting Goods. It's like one of the most enjoyable jobs I've ever had.
What'd you do there?
Sold sneakers. And I spent they used to let you cash your paychecks at the register.
Which is horrible.
Just bought
Oh my
sneakers.
God, I bet you paid,
What was the
yeah.
sneakers then?
Jordan's Nikes. I ran a whole resale business actually. I was selling all the business.
Shocker, I was waiting for that.
Yeah.
Was Jordan's as profitable as it is today?
It was like in vogue back then, and I think it's kind of back now. So.
We got my Jordans on tonight to go to the Sixers game. So I'm wearing here tonight.
Yeah, you got the ones. I've seen a couple different things.
Yeah. So what'd you do after that?
So you did Models.
So yeah, I did that. I went out to Pittsburgh. I had just kind of fell backwards into like a game day job at Heinz Field, which was pretty cool. So
Horrible job.
yeah, no, it was.
What'd you do at Heinz Field?
So I had a game day job. I was basically one of the people that took the tickets in the club level for the first 3 years that I was there, and then your senior year, everybody goes out and gets like internships, and I knew the people that were running the stadium, and I was the executive intern for the stadium. And it's the funny story I have about it is that so I was out there from 2006 to 2010. Steelers won the Super Bowl in 2005. They won the Super Bowl in 2008. They went to the Super Bowl and lost in 2010. I was the intern in 2009 when they went 9-7 and missed the playoffs. So the year before, the person that had my position got a Super Bowl ring out of it. So literally 1 year older, 1 year younger. And I'm definitely rocking. The one for the staff is $14,000. One for the players is like $40,000.
Oh my God.
So yeah, I missed out on that.
Are you still a Steelers fan?
I am. My dad's side of the family is from Western PA. I got raised up as a Steelers fan. Yeah.
Are you like me? You go to Eagles games, you have the Eagles jersey or no?
I don't own, nor have I ever owned a single piece of Eagles.
You're like my brother. You're like hardcore. I can't get that off. Whatever.
Sixers.
I gotta do it.
You can do Sixers because you didn't have.
Yeah, I'm Sixers, Phillies. I don't really care about hockey.
Oh, wait, you grew up in Philly. You went
Yeah.
to Pittsburgh. You worked for Pittsburgh.
I should.
You became Steelers fan
I
for
should be
4
a
years.
Pirates fan too, but they from the time I was 3 years old until the time I was 30. I don't think they had a winning season in that whole span. So there's
You make me feel good because half my life's Philly, half my life's Pittsburgh, and I can split it. You literally did 4 years in Pittsburgh, and you're a Pittsburgh fan?
I'm an asshole.
Wow. We're good. I can teach
Yeah.
you. All right, so how'd you like Pittsburgh?
It was cool. You can go to, no disrespect to anybody from Pittsburgh, you can go to Pittsburgh for a weekend and you can see the whole city. So I was there for 4 years. I had like a Peter Pan, I'm not gonna grow up summer after I graduated, and then I ran out of money and I came back to Philly. I've been here
How'd
since.
you like the people?
It's cool.
How'd you like the commute?
To Pittsburgh?
Tell them how it was getting around Pittsburgh. Is it fun?
Oh, there's 3 rivers and a mountain. Yeah, in an area the size of Ardmore, there's 3 rivers and a mountain. So you can't really get
Colder
anywhere.
there.
It's
Make a wrong turn.
7 degrees colder than Philly and more overcast every day you're out there. So.
And you had no GPS in it, did you?
No, you have to print MapQuest instructions.
Just so you know, if you go to Pittsburgh, the rivers all connect. Now you have Waze, so it's not as bad. But back then, you would go over one bridge
And be in a whole other section and not having to know what bridge to get back over.
Yeah.
No intersect. It was not fun. But it was cool, low key, right?
Yeah.
Not as go-getter as Philly. Insane.
Yeah, it's maybe a little bit slower. It's kind of like, it's a town, not a city, and it's more Midwest as opposed to just being East Coast. So different vibe.
Yeah. Where did you get the famous sandwich?
It's not very good.
It's overrated.
It's not very good.
It's kind of like Pat's and Gina's, it's overrated.
Oh my God, it's a mess.
Do you guys know about the sandwich?
It's got the fry, yeah, it's disgusting.
They put their French fries on the sandwich.
With coleslaw.
Yeah.
And then everything's gushy.
Pernandy Brothers, right? Pernandy Brothers. So,
There's one at Penn State, yeah.
That's, yeah. It's a really cheap. That's where I met Tandra. My wife, now it's a sandwich shop. There's a bar around there. All right, so you went to Pittsburgh, you did well in Pittsburgh, you got straight A's, you graduated there, then what happened after there?
So I came back to Philly. I graduated in 2010, like I said, Peter Pan summer. Then I moved back to Philly, lived in the parents' basement for probably about a year. My first job that I had after school was, so I should say this, my senior year that I was there, I did the internship for the Steelers. And then, the school, that ends in January, right? So then the job that was also an unpaid internship. So what I did to make money is I worked for my landlord. And my landlord was like a pretty interesting guy. So he owned about 60 units in Pittsburgh that were all like, he lived in California. He had a relationship with his realtor where his realtor would like send him properties and then they would go in on those properties together. And if it was more expensive, he would bring in like another rich guy from California and they would go in. So he owned, either 50% or 25% or 20% of 60 units in Pittsburgh. And what he would do is he would live for 3 weeks in California and then he would fly into Pittsburgh. He had like his parents were still in Pittsburgh, so he had like a circle of people that was there. And he would work for 2 weeks running around in a pickup truck, doing whatever it was that he needed to do. And he would, get to work at 7 a.m. and be done at 4:30 and then go drink to the bar and then wake up and do the whole thing over again. He would do it for 2 weeks and then go back to California for 3 weeks, in Philly or in Pittsburgh for 2 weeks, California for 3 weeks. And that was his life. And it just kind of seemed like a cool, like forgetting the fact that he's living on 2 coasts, right? But if you could do that all in one city, it was like, yeah, he's working 50% of the time. He's pretty well respected. He's got all these, business connections that are in town. He was like a good landlord. I mean, as far as college landlords go, he was like a good dude. And I worked for him. I did some leasing for him where I would just, help him show, units that were available around the city. I would go to he was doing renovations, so, get paid $10 an hour to just sweep the floor up after the guys were there. So I was like in construction zones. And he just kind of like showed me the very basics of like what that model of real estate investing looks like. And then, I graduated from college, it's 2010, I moved to a different city. I don't really have any contacts or anything through like the university. And, 2010 was kind of like the height of the recession. Unemployment was 10%. It was way higher than that for college grads. Nobody was hiring. I couldn't get a corporate job anywhere. So basically, I was a marketing major in school, which doesn't really mean anything. And it was basically like, what am I qualified to do? Well, I have this little in for real estate. I could probably do something there. So I got a job working Saturdays and Sundays at a property management company called the Gallman Group. They own, at the time, it was like 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 units. It was all like 100-unit apartment complexes, the outskirts of Philadelphia. So they didn't have anything like in the city. It was all like Conshohocken to wherever. And so I got the Saturday shift job, like a 1 day a week job.
What company
there.
was it again?
Gallman Group.
Do you recognize it?
Yeah.
Soroka's applied for it.
Yeah, she actually took, when I quit, she got my job.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh.
very small world.
Yeah.
So I was doing just the Saturday leasing job, so they needed somebody in the office to accommodate, Saturday leasing appointments. So I did, one building I had Saturday, and they're like, all right, this kid's not terrible. Another building hired me for a Sunday, and then I was like, well, I'd like, a real job, please. And they were like, all right, well, you can do like 2 more days a week, working under the marketing person. So I was there. So next thing you know, I'm working 3 different jobs at one company. And then I was there for probably 6 months with like that arrangement. And then the company, this is late 2010, the company bought 2 buildings basically at like a sheriff's sale or like a distressed thing. They bought a 100-unit building in Roxborough and a 100-unit building in Lansdowne. Lansdowne? Starts with an L. Lansdale. So they bought these 200-unit buildings that were basically being run into the ground by the previous management group. So they were 100-unit buildings with 50% vacancy. The one had, literally 50 vacant units. And then of those 50 occupied units, they didn't have a certificate of occupancy for the building. So what they were doing was literally just to keep the lights on. Any person that came in there and said, I want to lease a unit, they went, do you have first class and security? And they're like, sure. No application, anything, just give us 3 months of rent, please. They take the 3 months of rent, they move them in. And then word kind of got around the building that like without a certificate of occupancy, you can't get evicted, and everybody just stopped paying rent in general. So we took over this building that had 50 vacant units, 50 occupied units, and within the first 6 months, basically had to evict 25 of the 50 people that were in there because they literally just leased these places to like do whatever nefarious thing that they were doing because they knew that they couldn't get evicted until. So it was literally 25 squatters. And I was the on-site property manager there.
No wonder you learned so much.
You're so good.
Yeah,
Talk about
so
first
just
job.
imagine like this like 21-year-old kid trying to like, it was bad, right? So,
Trying to get beat up, right?
no, actually, believe it or not, people kind of liked me. It was like, yeah, I don't know.
You can tell, like, not good news, and people still like you.
Yeah, I kept a baseball bat in the corner of the office in case shit went
The
down,
joke
but-
here, you get Alan?
No, it's clean shaven. Beard's a lot better. But no, so I had that. That was basically the thing. So the company that I work for proceeds to do a full gut renovation of this building, and the way that they did it was they would go through any of the vacant units were all getting gut renovated while the other occupied units were staying occupied. So I was managing the occupied units and then coordinating like, all right, there's gonna be a water shut off in unit 202, because unit 302 is getting worked on today. So it's basically project management. I was kind of I was a very underpaid person handling all of the things that were happening in this like very large real estate project. And I did it for a year, and I leased 80 units in a year. And
How old were you?
21, 22.
Wow.
I was partying every night when I got home. I was not making very much money. And basically, I was doing a good job. Like the people that were running the company were like, taking notes. It was close, like doing good. And basically they said like, if this person is ever going to advance within our company, like this is not the job that we have available here. Like this is crazy. So like we have to send him to like an actual stabilized building to see if he has any interest in doing property management. And I got sent out to North Lane apartment complex in Conshohocken that's right off of Lafayette right there. And it is the most boring job you could ever possibly imagine. I'm talking like I was there at 10 o'clock in the morning. By noon I was done all the work I had to do for the day, but I couldn't leave the office until 5 because that's where the laundry card machine was. It was just me in an office by myself for 8 hours a day, waiting for people to come in case they needed to do laundry that day. And
What a broken wall.
yeah, I mean, so I was, I basically took the 5 hours of free time that I had every day and took the real estate exam, studied for the test, read a bunch. I was 22 and very ambitious at the time. So just like read a bunch of stuff, just really kind of made productive, like self-improvement, professional, good use of that time that I had on my hands. And I did it for 6 months. I was like, I literally hate this. And I said, I wanted to take a job that was more in like, what I was looking for was acquisition or development in Center City, because I didn't want to be in the suburbs anymore. I was living in the city. And I just wanted to be in the city doing something with real estate investment. I have a real estate license, whatever that looks like. And they basically, I saw a job posting on Craigslist to work for a real estate team, and it said you'll make $100,000 your first year. And I said, that sounds fun, let's do that. And no, not even remotely close to real expectation at the time. So yeah, but I wound up at Coldwell Banker on a team at Coldwell Banker. And this is late 2012, And the way that I remember it, the way I tell people is like in 2012, there were 3 teams in the city that anybody had never heard of. Even the concept of a team, I was like explaining to people in my family, like, what is a real estate? Like, I work for like a very successful realtor. They're like, what? Like, you're like an ad? Like, no, I'm a realtor. The concept, people didn't understand what it was. I think there were probably about 10 teams in the city. Does that sound about right? Maybe. There were 3 that I feel like people had heard of. There was Noah Ostrov's team, Philly Living. There was Mike McCann, which was the biggest, and there was the team that I was on. Which
I know.
Keep going.
which does not exist anymore.
Right.
The team leader I worked for was awful, and she wound up getting kicked out of Coldwell Banker by Jeremy. Because she was it's my session. I'm talking. It was very difficult to grow an office around someone who was a vacuum of culture. Yeah. So yeah.
It's not on my page, it's on my YouTube.
So yeah, but I mean, I look back on it and, you know, I don't know, the way that I feel like in business, sometimes you learn more from the failures than you do from the successes. And I'm actually pretty grateful that I had a chance to really see that and see what didn't work. Because it was really like, I mean, imagine knowing somebody who was like a gold prospector in San Francisco in 1848 and it didn't work, right? Like, that's really how it felt like. Because everybody else the other 10 teams the other 9 teams that existed at that point in time are all huge names that everybody would have heard of and are 10x the size that they were back then. And there's one that didn't work. And I got to be on the front lines and see why it didn't work. And I was on that team for 10 months, which made me like the most tenured employee that they had. And when I left, I was basically like, you know, this was the hardest thing that I ever did up until this point in my life. So like, I don't want to like get rid of my @CVPrep email address. I need to like, you know, I want all this lead gen that I've been doing, I want to, you know, have it to come back to me. So I thought I was going to stay at Coldwell Banker, but just go to another office. And then she got kicked out of the office that we were at. So I was like, oh, I guess I can stay here, right? And I went into Jeremy's office, like, I can still
No, you
work
showed
here, right?
up the next day in the lobby, and he says to me, "Oh, can I still work here?" I said, "Okay, even before I was at work, you're
Yeah.
sitting there waiting." I'm like, "Heck yeah, you could work here. You're motivated." Yeah.
So I was like, I just met my recruitment goal.
Yeah. Good. Sure. Done.
So yeah, so I wound up staying on, and then I was solo from let's call it late 2013. I was a solo agent up until, so I was there. I left Coldwell Banker in 2018, so I was there for 5 more years, 6 years total, solo agent, and you know, I think like, you know, what happened to me was probably around 2017. I guess if I have one thing to kind of share, like in part, like don't do what Andrew did. 2017, I did 12 million in sales. I did like, which was a lot back then. It feels like just even in the 5 years since then, like the purchase prices going up, like that's probably equates to like, you know, 16, 17, 18, 19 in today's market. And I was just working all of the time. I didn't have an admin. I had engaged a transaction manager to a certain extent, but not really. I was a one-man show. I was doing too much work. And like literally, I was, you know, 26, 27, I guess 28, something like that. I was in my 20s, and I just like, you know, I used to do this thing where like I didn't take any days off on the weekends. My weekends were literally like appointment, open house, appointment, write an offer, negotiate an offer, Saturday and Sunday. And I would just go 3 weeks in a row, and then one day I'd have a Tuesday where my first appointment was at 1 o'clock, and I would wake up at 12:30. And I would just go to the appointment, and like that was my day off.
And you like sleeping in?
Yeah, I'm not a great one. I've gotten better at it, but I'm not really a morning person.
So
yeah.
the other thing he talked about, here's a gold nugget tip. When you're really good at something, it's a strength, and what else is it? A weakness. He was so good at paperwork. He was one of the best mentors I ever had, like paperwork-wise, agreement-wise, inspection-wise, everything. He was so good. But when he would, what did he not do?
Delegate.
Delegate. He would not give up.
Yeah, and it was more than that. It was the way that I got to service so many clients, and this was
That's
all
true.
buy-side business too, like I was
Yeah, you were
doing
doing a ton of buy.
85% buyer business, which is not scalable and is just like wrong to begin with. But, like literally, that's just like all you're doing every night until 7 o'clock.
But you weren't
in the
prospecting,
morning.
it was all referrals.
It was a lot of just stuff that was coming back to me and everything like that. And but I should have, the business was ready. So I made what seemed like a ton of money that year, and then I was working on a business plan for the following year, and it was basically like I know what I need to do. I have to hire an assistant because this just isn't sustainable. And then I looked around Coldwell Banker, and there wasn't a single person there that was working with an assistant. So it felt like I was going to have to just reinvent the wheel. I didn't really have somebody to mentor me on how to do it. Around the same time, everybody, there was a talent drain at Coldwell Banker. A lot of the talented people at Coldwell Banker were going to KW because they got to a point where they needed to start a team to accommodate their business.
This is like 17.
Coldwell Banker wasn't really set up in a way to, like the commission splits, everything was based for the individual agent model. They didn't embrace the team
There's no cap.
structure.
I got
There
a
was
cap
no
on
cap.
there was no cap. Franchise fee was unlimited, no cap on
And
franchise.
I just didn't, it was all like, all right, you want coaching, like go hire Tom Ferry, like go hire some third party thing. There just wasn't anything there. Yeah, so basically I looked at it and was just like, well, I made a ton of money in 2017, 2018 is rolling around. Like, what if I just did this again? So I'll just punt on the whole hiring assistant thing. I'll just like put my head down and work really hard for another year. It'll be great. And I hit a wall that year where I couldn't work any harder than I was. The business was expanding faster than I could accommodate it. It kind of felt like, to a certain extent, the clients almost became like transactional. Like I wasn't forming relationships with people or with my best friends after like it was my first couple years. I had one moment that really like kind of got under my skin and fucked me up a little bit. I had a client that bought a house 6 months ago. I saw her out at a restaurant. I couldn't remember her name, and it was just like, I know the address. I know what she paid for the place. Like, what is? Think of it. And it just like was like, this isn't gonna work anymore. Like I'm just working too hard. This is more transactional. I'm doing this for the wrong reasons. And kind of around the same time, it became apparent that I really needed to get the admin. I really needed to get out of Coldwell Banker. So I came to KW Philly.
Who'd you hire, isn't it? I mean,
So actually, well, when I quick plug, right? So I got to KW, and one of the first trainings I went to at KW was Agent Financials. If anybody here has had a chance to go to that, it was an all-day thing. I flew in a speaker from like the Maps Network to do the thing, and they were there from 9 to 5, and it was all about like how you have to have your LLC set up so that you can pay this person like a legit paycheck. Like, what are you gonna pay them, like a brown paper bag or like a personal check? Like, you're gonna hire somebody talented and pay them a personal check. Like, you just had to, have an infrastructure, like a foundation, if you're actually gonna run a business. And it didn't even dawn on me. And I was like, oh man, I'm not ready to, like, I'm ready to hire an assistant, but I'm not ready to hire, the foundation's not here for me to do this. And I remember I left out of that, it ended at 5, and I went home and I went to bed at 6. And I woke up. I woke up early the next day and was just like, all right, I made the plan, and I went through the whole progression. And this is like, I got this class, and I got another one at 12:30 today. Where 12:30 class is just all about LLCs and.
tell me, so just pause for a second. So 12:30, what are they gonna learn if they come today? Why are you?
So it's setting up your LLC so that you can get paid as an LLC instead of paying you directly, and then what that means as far as hiring assistants, forming a team when it's ready to do that.
Or stay as an individual.
Or stay as an individual, but
Who in this group is getting paid as an LLC right now? Watch this, guys, look around.
if you're making more than $60,000 net annual income, so not just what you make on commissions, but minus your expenses, that's your net annual income. If that's more than 60 grand, you will save money by getting paid as an LLC and then paying yourself a salary. If you're making 100 grand, the savings is probably about $5,000 to $7,000 a year in taxes. If you're making 200, it's probably double that. 100 grand, you're probably saving 5 to 7 grand a year in taxes.
And there's another thing. By the way, just make sure everybody signs that we have issue one day. So guess for another day. So just for you guys all sign in, I think everyone look around, it doesn't matter, I just wanna know, test my test, it's fine. Let's go to cocktail day. Just starting. Anyways, the other benefit of getting paid as an LLC is raise your hands, no one's admitted to this, that you kept an Excel spreadsheet, you used a credit card, and you try to keep track of your expenses. And some years you knew your expenses were owed, and other times it's called guessing.
So, and having a monthly profit and loss statement, literally is it's the one progression that I've made in business that elevated me just like immensely, just professionally. There was like Andrew, the solo agent, and then there was like Andrew, the business owner, and that was a leap that took place when I had a monthly profit and loss statement.
You guys have that? Most people don't.
I sort of, keep track of all the expenses.
You should have a personal card, you should have, this is for houses, this is for summer
Entertainment.
living, every business I'm involved with, you have a credit card,
Yeah.
a personal credit card, but you don't have to then do Excel spreadsheets anymore. Once you've got one, right?
Yeah.
Perfect, how much easier is it?
I have a business card.
Right, so much easier.
Business card, business account, so you have a separate checking account.
Yeah, the whole thing goes to a bookkeeper who manages the QuickBooks for me, $60 an hour, it's like $100 a month.
When you have tax day, it's not that big a deal compared to used to be, it's like, oh my god, it's still not fun,
Yeah.
but you're just trying to keep track of your spending. Anybody feel that way?
There's just the power to be like, this month I made $8,000 net annual operating income. I'm usually accustomed to making 12. What happened wrong this month will let me go back and forth. I mean, earlier in January, I found I had $8,000 worth of fraud on my account that I caught right away because somebody charged an Airbnb off my thing. I caught it right away. I saw it 2 weeks later and got it back.
So most companies will not recommend this, you know why? Why? If you do it for one, you gotta do it for 800 offices. When you're independent franchises and you figure out something that is right, you recommend it. So this office knows it's right, we're recommending you guys get paid as an LLC, it can't be really same thing. So one, save money, two, make it easy on your life. And third, there's a really nice one, it's really cool, what it is. Could be, bank loans. The bank loves it. I said, fill out my financials to get money for investment property. All my businesses are separate now, it's very clean. Honestly, I can get money so much easier now. Some years I might make more, might make less, but the years that I have this, they actually don't care if I make more or less, because everything's just clean. Does that make sense? So when you got a small business, you're a realtor, oh, you're 1099. W-2, you can make less, we want to give you the money. You have it set up as an LLC, you show your income, your expenses, everything. They treat you more like a W-2.
I mean, if you ever want to buy a house, your W-2 income is better than your 1099 incomes, right? So you're not getting paid a W-2 salary to be a realtor that can count.
You
You're
said
paying it, but.
you have to make $60,000 after expenses, is that correct?
Yeah, so when you
Net.
do it this way, you're filing two tax returns, one for your business and one for yourself as a W-2 employee of the business. So your accounting charges, when you pay your accountant, will be more. But the idea is that you pay full taxes on your W-2 income. So let's say you make $100,000. If you pay yourself a $50,000 salary, you pay full taxes on that $50,000 salary.
Right, yeah.
The other $50,000 that you get, you take out in owner's distributions, owner profit. And you don't pay social security tax, you don't pay one or two other types of taxes. So you're not paying full taxes on that income. So the savings that you have from that extra $50,000 that you pulled out is more than what you would have paid your accountant to do two separate tax returns. So therefore you have saved money. And the savings only get bigger the more and more and more income you take out of your own distributions.
Did you talk to Howard?
No.
No? Send me the email again and I'll make sure. So my accountant, so a couple of weeks ago just asked me about accountants and who they should use, things like that. He's a real estate accountant and a good accountant. The other thing is, but they make less than that. I still think they should get set up because it's clean, it's clarity. What's the negative of getting set up?
I mean, if you're paying yourself a W-2 salary, you're
Even if you're not.
typically doing that through a payroll company. They charge you every time that you pay yourself. There are additional little nickel and dime
But you can
fees.
still set up as an LLC and not take a W-2. Like I would recommend.
I would argue if you're making $40,000 a year as a realtor, you should spend your time doing like lead gen, creating more income than trying to manage the income that you already have. That would be my other argument.
My debate would be, which is a fair statement, would be it's cleaner, more organized, and putting yourself in a position of not getting in trouble. Because unfortunately, in my position, over the years I've seen this, and he gets to see it too, which is issues with people with tax liens. It's very, very common.
Come to the class at 12:30, I'll show you how to run it the way.
Who's coming at 12:30? All right, so he's the expert. All right, so wait, say it again, wait. Do that. Do it again.
Last time I did, I had 5 people.
Yeah, you went off with it.
And I was
Yeah, you're set up there, right?
I'm set up and I'm coming again.
All right, so let's, I'm gonna pepper you some questions, right? 'Cause
Okay.
we're 11:40 and,
Anyway, so just put a bow on that story, right? So a couple months later, hired an admin, went through Soprano Consulting, hired an admin, saw that whole thing. Business was ramped. I hired an admin like July of 2019. Business was totally ramping up. I was like, oh man, we're coming into 2020. We're gonna do a ton of business this year. The broker job got dumped on my, it was just right there. So I was like, all right, I'm still gonna sell a ton of real estate and I'm also gonna be the broker. We'll see how this thing goes, whatever. 6 days later, the world ends. We're all working from home. You can't sell real estate from March to the end of May. Then we get back on. And it was like everybody in the world was like, I need to buy a house right now. 2020 was the best financial professional year of my life because there wasn't anything else to do other than sell real estate and learn how to be a broker. Got to the end of that year and was like, I'm not gonna make the same mistake that I did before. I'm gonna start a team and just try to, leverage this a little bit more. Brought on 2 agents. One wasn't a great fit, the other was an amazing fit. Did that for a year. And then again, it was kind of like, all right, I need a little bit more leverage here. I saw kind of a potential for a big future doing the broker job. So in January of this year, my whole team, which was me, 1 admin, and 1 agent, merged onto Jim Roach Real Estate Team, which is a very large real estate team out of Philly. So I sell a little bit. I'll take a listing. My parameters are, I'll take a listing at any price range. Any buyer that comes to me, I'm gonna hand off to a member of the team and take a referral fee on. I do the broker job, so I work 4 jobs really right now. I'm thinking about it, right? So I'm broker record KW Philly, broker record KW Mainline. I am director of sales for Jim Roach Real Estate Team. So I coach about 20, low 20s number of agents over there, just doing one-on-ones and trainings and handling their transactions, everything. I do my own real estate sales to a certain extent, not a ton anymore. And then basically in whatever free time that I have,
you're an investor.
Yeah, I try to.
And you bought a killer all the time.
So yeah, it all works out. That's my life.
So, you've had an interesting journey. You've done a lot. Your first job was like, wow. Like your first job, you're 21 years old, 50%,
Yeah.
big and talk. So what tips, I'm gonna go over some tips and questions. Like, what do you think you did well? Give me something you think you did well.
Yeah. So as a realtor, like I don't think I'm the best salesperson. I'm certainly not the best networker or meter of people. What I did really, really well was I had, and I have not seen one that's better than mine. I have the best buyer consultation presentation that I've personally seen. Mine's better than yours, sorry. I did that. I got trained on that, to the credit of the team that I was on my first year, I got trained very, very well in that situation. I was a buyer's agent. That was the role. I was 23 when I was doing it. My friends, my sphere certainly didn't have a house to sell. They were all looking to buy houses. I sold them houses. I sold their friends and coworkers houses. I sold their friends and coworkers houses. It just spiderwebbed out from there. I got very good at meeting a buyer, cutting out all of the excess. Like, I'm not going to show you how. Everybody that I worked with showed 6 to 12 houses as part of their search. I never showed anything more than that because I just put in the work up front to make it as efficient as possible. And that's how it was a necessity because I was doing so much buy-side business, so many units per year, that it just was extremely cut and efficient and I have like, Tim Duncan, right? The fundamentals are strong in that side. So I would say that was my secret sauce when I was selling real estate. And then
That's great, by the way. I'm sending myself a message right now for January. Who would like to see Andrew do a buyer presentation?
I would.
Yes, all right. Get it set up now. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah.
So we used to do this class once a month. We kind of got a little aggressive, we had to back down a little bit. We did a buyer presentation and a listing presentation every month. And I sat up in the room and one of us was the buyer, one was the seller. You got to see the presentation every month. Well, as you can see, like a lot of people, Andrew gets to see the background of how much effort goes into getting this stuff done. It actually got exhausting, like trying to run the whole thing. So then we went to rotating buyer, seller, buyer 1 month, seller. Then, just like in life, some things fall off the rack. I don't know why. We gotta get that back on. So what do you guys think? We'll do that?
Yes.
Back in
Yeah.
January. And then February, we'll get someone in here for a listing presentation. We'll do one, not go both. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, back to you. What else do you do well? You're a very good listener. How do you,
Yeah,
how do
I
you
think
such a good listener?
I think I'm pretty, this is like, whatever, but to say it out loud seems whatever, weird. But I think I'm good at talking to people and having like the difficult conversation that needs to be had and like saying it with your chest and getting your point across in a way that people find to be respectful and professional. So I think that has translated pretty well to the broker job on that as well. I think that's something that I do probably with a higher level of skill than
You're an act.
most people would be able to.
Yeah, you can deliver the information. What's some tips you give to people that you listen? Do you take good notes, or you want to be like a rainmaker brains and you can listen really well, remember the details? How do you do it? What's the tips?
Probably the latter.
All right, sure. That's what you guys know. Unless you're a whatever that is called, right?
Rainmaker.
That's a rainmaker.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
So you just listen, people just say stuff and you can digest and remember it.
Yeah, I don't really have a great system for taking notes.
Yeah, can't help you there.
The great system I have for taking notes is that you have to email me and then I have everything in the email.
That's what I was about to say. I was about to
Yeah,
say.
you always
Great.
say follow
What?
up that.
I was about to just say that, like the system you set up to be able to manage that many agents, like,
Yeah.
this is my system, this is what I'm good at.
Yeah, and that was the biggest adjustment to the broker role, and I learned it from McCann, and he probably doesn't like it, but I was like, well, you taught me how to do this. Back in the day when you did a deal with McCann, you could not call him. McCann and Onesti, for 5 years, neither one of them answered a phone call, like, at all. At all. So anybody that I have a buyer that's interested in your listing, they're not taking that phone call. You email them, I have a buyer that's interested in the listing. Great, what do you need from us? So disclosure, boom, here it is. And like, somebody was probably monitoring those emails. Right now it's LD, right? But it's just like, instantaneous response. The whole thing was there, and it was easier to communicate. Like once you knew, I don't call this person, I email this person. Your experience working with them was phenomenal, and you would do an entire real estate transaction with the both of them. You would never speak to the agent on the other end of the phone the whole time, and they're doing however many 100 units a year, and they're not getting in trouble or dropping clients or anything. It's perfect. And it was just like, when I took the broker job, like, I had a little bit of experience at the time, but I was never in like a lawsuit or anything crazy like that. And the phone was just, everybody's hardest day in real estate was just, I'd have 5 of those phone calls by noon, and I was just like, I don't know the answer to any of these. Like, will you please send me an email so I don't drop through this? And it was like, well, are we gonna set up office hours? Like, no, they're just gonna call whenever they want. So then it was just like, I'm not gonna answer the phone anymore. You're gonna email me, I'm gonna get back to you in a reasonable amount of time, the ball's not gonna get dropped. And then I just write full paragraph, very detailed, this is what you need to know now, this is what you're gonna need to know in the future. And just like think it through a couple steps ahead of time. Just like, here's how they call me the next time you have a problem, and a lot of work, email the next time you have a problem. And it has been successful, I would argue. There's 850 agents between the two brokerages.
So Mainline has an extra layer. He has him taking the emails, and we have Judy Getson answering the phone. She loves answering the phones, he loves emails. So we're lucky in the Mainline, we have 2 doing that. What's some things that you didn't do well?
Biggest professional mistake that I made was 2018, not hiring an admin. I joke, right? So I work for Jim Roach now, and Jim's team's $200 million team, plus they just added a bunch of members, and we'll do more than that next year. Jim started at Coldmaker after me. I knew him on his first day there. When he left Coldmaker to go to KW before me. When he left, he was selling less real estate than me. By the time 6 months later I moved over there, I still never sold more than he did in that 6 months, right? Like and the difference was he hired an admin and he took the step and he did it and just, took off around Jim. But I kind of wonder, like, shit, if I would have just like did it 2 years earlier, like would I have had a similar?
The difference is Jim was more open to it, and Jim took models that were built on admins already and didn't recreate the wheel.
Working for him for a year, I literally don't know where he sleeps or anything. I mean, he works once a month. There's something that he like rolls out and just like, when on earth did you do this? Whereas I'm probably to a fault. I'm a bit more calculated and just take forever before I.
The things that you don't see during the day is the difference of what makes some people's people and other ones not.
The other thing I did wrong on that, just the working all the time in my 20s was bad. I really screwed up my life. That took a while to kind of get back where I needed to go and like just to recalibrate things.
Especially as buyers, dude. You're so buyer.
Yeah, it's just for me it was one thing.
It's like 100% buyers, weren't you? You weren't even like.
No, it was probably
70%.
80 or something like that. I was getting listings here and there, but no,
It's fun.
how should I say it? It was basically like in my 20s, it was my experience that like I would tell somebody, what my weekend looked like. It's like I got a 9 o'clock, I got a 10 o'clock, I have an open house at noon, another one at 2, and then I got to write an offer, present it, and I'm doing the same thing the next day. And in my 20s, any person in my life, if I told them I was doing that, would have been like, high five, you little mogul, go get them. And like the second I turned 30, it was just like, what are you doing? And it was just, I couldn't pivot fast enough to get back to something that was more sustainable. But it was like basically, other people in my life were basically like, you need to fix this before I realized I was burnt out before I was realizing it.
So what was some of your takeaways today? So we're about 10 minutes left. Questions, takeaways. This side. What do you got?
LLC and tax savings.
That's amazing.
So we're gonna be at 12:30?
Here.
Here? Okay, cool. What about this side?
I think, just like, he said he's not very salesy or a good people meter, is that what he said?
Connector. He's not going out to events and mingle and.
Yeah, so I think it's just like every agent has their own style.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
whatever works for you, works for you.
My question was, when you got burnt out in 17 and 19, what did you do? Did you go have fun? Did you just rein yourself in? Did you sleep for 2 weeks? What did you do?
Well, around that same time, I moved to KW, and KW was a very much of a different atmosphere. And when I was really running my own business and was focused on, how can I sell more real estate next year than I did this year, my favorite part of the job was taking a step back and just like putting on the CEO hat and just thinking big picture, like I could try out this spinning plate and it'll cost me this much money a month and that should yield this much. And so I was always better at like, what move should the company make? I really enjoyed that part of the job. I have a listing appointment at 4 o'clock today, let me make sure I run comps, was not my favorite part of the job. And I think when I hired the admin, that was really rejuvenating for me. I wrapped my head around I read every book, how to hire somebody, what it's going to do to your business, how to manage that person, how to train that person. I paid some Franny to do it. I paid some Franny to train them. I put them on mass coaching.
He's analytical.
I did the whole thing for it. The one thing that I wasn't expecting.
That wasn't my question.
I know, but the thing I wasn't expecting though, which is the answer to your question, is when you're not working by yourself and you have another person, it's a 2-person team, like it's a completely different job. It's so much more fun, like having somebody there that is like in it with you. Courtney was my admin for how to ask something like that, and is now on Judge. I got her, she came over to Jim Road, she's now running the transaction management over there, like.
So what did you do? You focused on her during that time? Is that what got you into that?
I just like kind of got me to enjoy, I think I enjoyed the job a little bit more when I had somebody
There's
just
your-
there.
So when you had someone there, you're not left on your own. Like right now, Andrew and I this is something he went through, is when you're not doing as much business as normal, you normally start picking things apart. And you start picking things apart, and the question you ask yourself, is it worth the return? And most of the times we just pick things because we pick things, and we gotta stop picking things because we're gonna drive people nuts. That's the downfall. The good side is you have someone else to go through. In his case, he had someone to go through with and being on your own. Raise your hand in this group if you're by yourself right now. Yeah, so when you go through a turn like that, it's much more difficult when you have that one person instead of that person. So, yeah, it's a good answer. What else?
What do you have for 2023? What are you preparing yourself for that team?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. Alright, so basically, I am at a point I need more leverage right now. My value proposition for hiring an admin is different than yours. If you hire an admin, you'll sell more houses, that admin will pay for itself. If I hire an admin, I will be more organized, but I'm not commission-based income-wise. So essentially, I'm meeting with, I've gotten creative. I have some solutions for how I can leverage my time in like each of my 4 different jobs. I'm working on implementing those things over the course of the next couple of months, which will free me up. And basically, I've kind of transitioned, like the way that I look at what I do in a given week. Like my jobs are kind of like accounts, right? So like I manage the brokerage thing as like one thing that I do. I manage Jim's team as like one thing that I do. If there are other business opportunities that are out there, I have time, allocated that I can, do that. Like you're servicing this client and that client and that client. It all just kind of fits together like that. So I still feel like I have that mentality of an agent, where it's just all of these different clients, but my clients are more broad-based jobs.
Is your schedule blended all day, or do you have time?
My calendar is absolutely amazing, right? It's color-coded. I got all the colors utilized filed on there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Say it.
I LD saw it and was like, Mike.
Are you being serious? I thought you were teasing.
Oh, my calendar's outrageous.
You're analytical and
It's
wrong.
right.
I know.
Look at the color, you know what you're doing.
How you said that.
Oh, no, it's,
Has it always been that way?
I probably am, I'm sure Jeremy had a solid 2 years where he was basically like all about Darren Hardy, and I read all the Darren Hardy books, basically with this guy. And that's all about time blocking and prioritizing and the whole thing. So that really got ingrained into my.
You guys ever read Darren Hardy? Compound Effect is probably one of the best
Yeah.
books you could read for the new year, right? I
Yeah.
see you shaking your head. Talks about the small little things you do every day to get you build something.
Anybody getting started in real estate in the first year should read Miracle Morning for Real Estate Agents and Compound Effect for Darren Hardy.
So we worked at Cole Banker, we didn't have the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, so
I adopted a book, and it was Darren Hardy, Compound Effect, and Miracle
and
Morning.
one second one.
Miracle Morning by Hal Elroy, ELROD. She probably died 9 times. Got my wife to quit her job getting real estate. There's story after story of people like taking leaps off that book. I don't know what is in it. but
That is
I've
the
read it all the time.
cheesiest book that's ever been written, but it is a very powerful message.
Yeah.
Miracle Morning.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. What else?
In terms of your communication style, you mentioned that when you're co-opting with the agent, like it's all email. You don't, there's no phone. Are you that way with clients as well?
No, I talk to clients.
Okay.
I talk to the member of Jim's team. If I'm doing a deal, my default is always to email. If I can do a deal and we never spoke on the phone, that means we just did an awesome deal. Let's do another. If I have to go on the phone, it means that there was a problem that I haven't put out, and it probably wasn't my problem, it was either problem.
What about text messaging?
No, he hates it.
I hate text messaging.
Oh, no, I mean, I'm the same way, but I find like,
because
I'm in a transaction now. They text me.
when it's your client, you communicate with your client how they want to do
Right,
it.
but the co-op agent.
I would really prefer it on email, but I also don't, if they're not an agent at our brokerage, I'm not gonna be like, I'm more busy than you, so you have to communicate with, I'm not gonna do it that way.
So what do you do?
They'll, I don't know, whatever makes sense. They're just like, I don't have like necessarily like a system for it. But if it's like a longer, the reason I don't like to text message is because I probably don't have your number saved in my phone. I can't flag it as unread, and I'm probably in a meeting when you send it.
Right.
I can't forward them. And they're probably not as well written as you would if you sent me the same message in an email. And you probably didn't think about it as long as if you would have typed it out as an email. So it's almost a totally inefficient way of communicating.
In defense of that, I think the email just does keep it organized and streamlined.
Yeah.
Because I color code and have subfolders and email, so.
Yeah.
So just so you guys know, when you're communicating with people, text, it depends on the age group. I'm 45. I don't know what age group, but just say, text is immediate. For most people, text is immediate. Email is very professional, and then pick up the phone when you need to pick up the phone. It drives me nuts as a person if someone texts me and asks me a random question. If you're in a group, I'll tell you. Like if it's not urgent, shoot me an email. Because you can't manage it on a text. There's not folders, the newest feature now, I just got it, you can't unread a text. But you can't put it in groups, you can't put it in folders, anything like that. So just keep that in mind and communicate with people like that thought process how it is. What's one more, actually, we're gonna leave with this. I was gonna leave the class. Right? What was your best takeaway? This side, what was your guys' best takeaway?
Don't hold yourself back from growing.
Got good?
I understood what you were saying when you said you ran into the client and you couldn't remember their name, and I've done that, so I would want to make it less transactional, more.
Who's Kendall Wilkins at 1812 Gordon Street?
You'll never forget that.
Yeah.
You need to surround yourself with people that are gonna help you think better, that are gonna help you grow. You don't have to reinvent the wheel by yourself.
Yep.
Yep.
Big keys.
Yeah, you got around bigger thinkers.
Right.
We had a good group, like that group, it was top 10 in America growing. It was us growing it. It wasn't like bigger people
I'm
above us.
so happy I worked there. Everybody that I started with in real estate is now basically a heavy there, and they're all like,
Yeah, the doors came over. How about this side?
You didn't necessarily say this, but what I gleaned from it was that you should have a coach or a mentor or accountability partner who knows you better than you know yourself and can identify when you're going down the wrong path or when you've exceeded your abilities, and they can straighten you out and say you need to go this way instead of that way, or at least consider something different.
I used to write checks addressed to Jeremy and would put them on his desk, and if I didn't do a particular task by a certain date, he had to deposit the check.
Yeah, it's called accountability. You steal a car, you go to jail. You don't do a task, you pay. Now, I find that most people can't do that, right? Because they don't want it bad enough. Like guys like him and Colin Conway, different people like that would be willing to put the money up. So if anybody in this group wants to do that, I do it personally. 2 other people to hold me accountable. You should do the same thing, just transparency. I don't keep the money. I give it to KW Cares. When I was in Philly, I gave it to people on the street that I would use it right way, and then KW Cares. What's another thing?
Just reinforcing the benefits of hiring an assistant.
The other thing you said too, Carrie, was when you have a coach, there's 2 types of coaches, solution-based and question-based. Many times as human beings, Andrew knows the answer and Jeremy does. We just need someone else to ask us questions, better questions that get us thinking. Most humans work all day and we don't think. Coaching period gets us to think. So if you don't have it in your calendar now, you need a thinking time. Andrew will try to ask me some things. I'm like, whoa, this is thinking time. I got a small brain. Every human being needs to thinking.
Just that roll camera.
Well, so my takeaway is like what everybody's saying is like have a good team as well, but I think just from the tax advantage standpoint, like do you use an accountant or do you manage?
I have an accountant. The thing that I have a bookkeeper that manages the stuff, and then when it's time to do taxes, I'm just forwarding stuff. It used to take me so many together, and now you print off 3 PDFs from the payroll software, and you forward 5 PDFs from the bookkeeper, and you're done. Yeah, it's great.
And also, sorry, just kind of feedback off what you were saying. I think having that thinking time, like literally taking the time to, mindset, be mindful, and remove any difficult stuff from your brain. Great out.
Great organization skills. I know you mentioned quite a few hats. You make it sound a little too easy, but I'm sure that you did a great job. I mean, I admire that. You make it look like you're humble, you make it look like it's not the biggest, but I know you're doing a lot.
He does it very well, doesn't he? That's one of the biggest, right?
Very well.
Donnie, I don't know if he gets mad. He might get mad inside, but I have no idea.
Yeah.
You squirrels running around.
Yeah. Me, more emotional, McCain, you kind of read it. You know, walk in, McCain, like, dude, what's up?
Yeah, eyes.
Right? It's that emotional.
Do you color code your time off, your personal time?
It's yellow.
And Tony didn't ask you what you do for fun.
I mean, I don't have any kids, so I still see friends and travel and all that. That hasn't ended for me yet, so I'm still 22 at
You
heart.
can still do that when you do have
Can
children.
you?
Anybody else that saw?
My takeaway is his bio presentation is better than all of ours combined.
We'll find out in January. If you want to be a judge, let me know, next to judges. You guys good? So, we're gonna keep the tradition alive for Andrew doing this, Can You Kill It, CNBC, and ABC.